Welcome back. This is our second episode of Love, Growth, and Narratives. I'm Freddy.
And I'm Tiffany.
As we discussed last week, this week we're going to talk specifically about love. And in this case, we want to talk about our individual journeys getting to love. How did you get there, Tiffany?
I'm not sure. I think I've always been a romantic. I think that I got that from my mom. She's very romantic, very fantasy. I have always wanted to be in love, to fall in love. I felt like everything in my life I got that I wanted except for love. That was taking a really long time to find me and for me to find as well. And I think I was trying to create it in a lot of my past relationships. And when I say created, I was trying to get that person to be who I wanted them to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I know with me, a lot of it goes back to childhood because I never felt like the good looking guy. I always kind of felt like, I was a decent looking guy on a good day with a nice outfit and a haircut. And so I never felt, I didn't feel ugly.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't feel like women wanted me. I felt like I was presentable,
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a woman didn't mind being with me, but I never felt like, ooh, like she had to worry about her girlfriend wanting to steal me. I don't think they ever felt threatened in that way. And so for me, because of that, I was a pleaser.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a pleaser in any other part of my life except with my woman. And the problem is that I took it way too far where I would lose myself in a relationship and then be resentful because of the fact that I lost myself, which ended up being my own fault. Did you have anything like that?
You're reminding me of something. A family member who will go nameless at this point said to me, I love you, but I don't like you. And at the time I was 9 years old.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know what that meant, but I knew it was hurtful and it stuck with me for a very long time, well into adulthood. And I think I was trying to search and trying to create a situation where a person both liked and loved me. And I didn't know, I wasn't really sure what that meant, but I know I wanted both of them. And I was forcing it and pushing it. And similar to you, growing up, I didn't feel that I was the top chosen girl. I was pretty for a dark-skinned girl. It was always, I was pretty, but whoever I hung out with was prettier, all the way going back to kindergarten. I remember I had a crush on a boy named Steven, and he liked my friend who looked, opposite of me. And so that stuck with me too for a long time. It sounds crazy, but it did. And that kind of repeated itself.
Yeah.
And I tended to date people who just weren't available. Maybe I did that on purpose as a way to kind of, control rejection in a weird kind of way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to break out of that.
Yeah.
It took me all the way to my late 40s, to be honest with you. And I think also I knew that I was, let me go back a little bit further, based on some things I saw in the relationships in my family, I knew what I didn't want. And there was a point in my life where I wanted to be in control. If I was going to be in a relationship, I was going to be in control. And so I dated down, so to speak, not to knock anyone, but I kind of did. And then I said, wait, I don't want this. I want someone who's more my equal. And so I started to change my thought process. But I knew that I wanted a partner who was going to be like an equal in the sense of, I'm not less than because I'm a woman. He's not more than because he's a man. And it's kind of hard to find in this society. And I would say actually it's even a little bit harder to find our culture in my experience. And so I held out for that though, because I really didn't see that in my family. I didn't see, my grandfather was really was probably the best example I saw of a relationship and, you know, a man. And he wasn't that type, even though my grandmother stayed home and took care of the kids. She didn't have less power in the relationship because of that. He still cooked. On the weekend, he did things with the kids. It wasn't like, you know, my job is just to bring home money and that's it, you know. And I knew that I wanted someone in my life who I felt equal with, but I just had a hard time, you know, finding that person.
Yeah. I mean, like a lot of it was, and we get these things from our upbringing. My father told me my whole life, he said, a man will never be happy until he finds the woman that he doesn't deserve. And so what I did with a lot of my past relationships was I put the woman on a pedestal. And I was absolutely a pleaser. And the problem is I would absolutely lose myself. I didn't have hobbies. I didn't have things that I enjoyed doing. I didn't set any boundaries. And then, you know, you start going down the road and you're always doing what the other person wants to do. And then you get upset. It's like, why are you never doing what I want to do? And then come to realize, well, you're not doing what I want to do because I never told you what I wanted to do.
Right.
And so, you know, going through that and even through my marriages, that was something that I didn't realize up until a few years ago that I was actually doing, because after my second marriage, when I felt, okay, now I have time to do things, to have hobbies, I had no idea what I liked doing. I honestly had no idea what I wanted to do. So that was difficult. You know, how did you deal between relationships?
I think that I was similar to you, where I didn't have those boundaries and didn't think about what I really wanted. I was just trying so hard to create love in that relationship by doing things that I thought would make that person fall in love with me.
Yeah.
Some of it was things I wanted to do. Some of it was what I thought they wanted. But really, a lot of those people, specifically the last long-term relationship I had, didn't want me, didn't want what I wanted. It was more of a gimmick. It was, but I didn't accept that. I thought that that's what a relationship was. You had to appease that other person and get them to fall in love with you. That was something I was doing, right? That's what we're taught as women. Like, you know, think like a man, act like a lady, and all this other stuff. Like, there are all these books, the rules. I read them all. Like, all these things you're supposed to do to get the guy to love you. Act like this, do this, think like that. Don't be his piece, blah, blah, what all the little sayings are. And I really tried hard to do and be that person, but with people who didn't want what I wanted. And that's, I think, why I wasted so much time with so many people. I mean, I've met some great people along the way and learned some lessons, you know, but I spent too much time with people who didn't want to spend time with me, or who were not, maybe they did care about me, but they just weren't emotionally available. Yeah. You know, I think that's an issue that a lot of men and women have, particularly men. Yeah. And I felt that, well, it's my job to make them want me, to make them be more emotionally available. Like, there was something I could do or say to cause them to do that. And I realized that that was wrong, to be trying to change someone and trying to get them to be a certain way and act a certain way and think a certain way. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen ever.
So for me, it was kind of the opposite. I wasn't trying to change someone. I was trying to keep whoever I was with from changing me. You know, I'm a pretty quirky guy, and, you know, I'm a technology nerd. I love learning. I love reading. And so because of that, I end up changing my opinions on things. I'll find a new argument that goes against what I thought before, and I'll go down a rabbit hole of research, and all of a sudden I start thinking a different way, and I like that about me. And that was something that I never warned anyone of in the beginning. It was something that they had to kind of discover about me down the road.
Mhm.
And I realized that because of that, I can't technically blame the other person because I never made that a requirement. Is that, I'm a person who learns and changes, and you have to understand that that's the way I am. And I always want to be a person who evolves, who changes when the better argument is made and things of that nature. I don't want to be rigid.
Mhm.
And I never told people about that in the beginning. And so I had to take some lessons from that. The other thing that my father always told me that I've learned from my entire life was, he said, everything is your fault. He said, everything in life is your fault. Even when it's not your fault, how did you get involved in, what did you do afterwards? How did you react to it? Things of that nature. And so when I would have these failed relationships, instead of getting upset at the other person, I would take time to just inventory my own actions, the things that I was doing, and saying, hey, okay, where did I go wrong? What are the things that I did well? Let me keep those. What are the things that I did poorly? Let me work on fixing those. And so every relationship I had has been kind of, it's been a lot of experimentation, because there are certain things that I aspire to be, but they're not really hardwired yet.
Mhm.
One of the things that I'm proud of with this relationship is that I told you from the beginning,
Mhm.
there are certain things about me that are hardwired,
Mhm.
and there are certain things about me that are aspirational. These are things that I'm trying to do, but they're not hardwired, and so I'm going to screw them up here and there.
Mhm.
And in my previous relationship, I didn't say that. And so I gave that person the thought process, oh, well, that's who Freddy is.
Mhm.
I didn't let them know, no, I'm trying to be this, but I'm not that yet.
Mhm.
And so, of course, they would get upset when it's like, well, what happened? You make yourself out to be this person, and it's not really you. And so now all of my quirks and all of the things that I'm trying to do, that's why I tell you ahead of time, hey, I may screw this up, but this is something that I'm trying so that I can be better.
Okay, so I seriously, you consciously made a decision to be different, to
Yes.
grow, to see what you did wrong
Yes.
and what you could be better at. I think for myself, I think I did that unconsciously, actually.
Mm.
I I think all of my life I was wanting to be someone else because I felt like who I wasn't good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was how I looked, my shape, how I spoke, how I showed up in class, everything, honestly. And I think by the time I met you, I finally was like, this is who I am. All of it. This is it. I was so broken from the last major relationship that I couldn't even fake the punk. Like I just had to be myself. And one thing I have to say that I learned in that last relationship was he introduced me to the love languages and had me read about them, had me take the test, even though he had no intention of applying that to me. But that really resonated with me. Like the areas that I scored higher on were definitely the areas that touched my heart more. And I realized that I was not demanding that my love language was met. It wasn't being met at all.
Right.
And I was allowing that. And once I said, I'm not going to give any extensive amount of time to a person who was not meeting my love languages, I was going to walk away. I think that led me to you faster because then I was not wasting so much time with the wrong person, and I was actually honoring what I wanted. While I knew who I wanted for a long time, I made all the lists, like Oprah said, write down everything you want in the person, like 100 things.
Yeah.
I made the list, I made the vision board, I did all of that things. I knew what I wanted. So I knew what it was going to look like and what it was going to feel like. I think I ignored it before because I wasn't really sure that I was going to get that, because everyone was telling me, you want too much and men are like this and you're asking for too much. And, it just felt like it wasn't real. It wasn't possible. And that it was especially difficult for me. Again, I'm not trying to label everybody and make blanket statements, but for me in the Black community, I felt like it was really hard to find what I was looking for in a Black man. And it wasn't that I wasn't open to dating other people. I did date other people. It's just that I think I'm more drawn to Black men. Maybe because the lack of I didn't grow up with a father. I don't know. I'm not saying I have daddy girl issues. I don't believe in all that stuff. But I can say that I knew that that's kind of where I wanted to go. And I said, there's too many people in the world for this person not to exist. I'm not asking for, a crazy amount of things. I'm just asking for a decent person who wants me as much as I want them, and is a good person and understands that women are not less than, and that could be a big deal trying to find that in this society. But that was really important to me, because I knew that I couldn't be my best self if I wasn't with someone who felt that way. So I always held on to that. And what I was trying to do is to make the men that I dated into that, like trying to convince them, so that our conversation, our arguments, everything was kind of surrounded around that. But with you, I didn't have to do any of that. I didn't have to do any of the things that the book said. I didn't have to train anyone. Like, you were like that already. And it was just such a blessing to me. And I was able to receive it, because even through all the heartbreak that I had, I knew I had to stay soft, or if you came around and I would run you off.
Yeah.
Or whoever off, right? So I knew that I had to stay soft in my heart. And it was hard over and over again, like getting to know someone again, asking all those questions. But you did it in a way that no one else had, with all your, 30 questions and all the vulnerability, and you having me listening to Renee Brown and all of this stuff. It just felt right. And while I didn't think you were love bombing, right? Because I had been like,
I didn't even know what love bombing was. I had to look it up. Oh, like love bombing? How can I do that? I don't even know what it is.
It felt like that, because it was like, you're just coming on strong. And it's like, I never knew what it was like to have a man want you. Yes, a man wanting you sexually and all these other ways, right? And wanting the chase and that kind of stuff, but to really want you, to really like you, because I also am quirky, right? It reminds me of what's Issa Rae, before she had the big show on whatever, she had a show on YouTube, like Awkward Girl or whatever, Awkward Black Girl, and I was like, that's me. So to find someone who accepted that was just a breath of fresh air, not to be cliche, but it's like wow, I can finally breathe, and I could be myself, and I'm just more mature, and I accept myself more. And if you accept yourself more, then other people are going to accept you.
Yeah.
And I do understand that whole, I love you, but I don't like you, because you tell me you like me and you love me. And that's so important, right? Because you can be with someone that you love. You can be around people you love and not like them. And to not be liked is almost worse, right? Because someone feels like they have to love you because you're related or you're married or you're in a relationship.
Right.
But liking you, that's different.
Yeah.
And so to hear those words from you, it just, it soothed that trauma in me that I had so many years ago. And it just helped me just be open. I'm still working on being open. And I think you realize that I'm way more open than I was at the beginning.
Absolutely.
But it's because of the way that you love me that I'm able to do that, I
appreciate that. One of the things that you were talking about a few minutes ago that I wanted to jump into a little bit was, you were talking about how you wanted to stay a certain way for the next person, and you wanted to do certain things for the next person. One of the things that I've heard this from men and women, it's, they'll say, how do I find the person for me? And I took the opposite stance on that all of my life. I said, if I find the right woman for me, why would she want me? And so that's why I kind of tried to work on myself, instead of spending all of my time getting angry that I'm not finding the right woman, really preparing myself so that if I could, that at least I felt like I had a chance of being able to attract her and keep her around. And that's why I just constantly concentrate on myself. And I think that's one of the problems that people have, is that they look outward and say, well, there's a small pool here of people who I would even want, and women saying that men are all bad, or men saying women are all bad, or whichever, and not looking at themselves and saying, hey, maybe there's something wrong with me. And I tell you, because when I realized at the level that I was a pleaser, and how vulnerable I was not in the beginnings of relationships, my previous relationship prior to you, it kind of hit me when it all ended. And I remember I was actually happy that I realized what I was doing wrong. I remember I called my older sister and I said, I figured it out. It's not them, it's me. It is absolutely me. First off, I was not telling them everything from the beginning, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Second off, I was not establishing boundaries. As to, these are the things that I like to do and these are the things I want to do, and thirdly, not letting them know that I'm a quirky guy and I always want to evolve, and I may think something this week and I'm always trying to follow the evidence, follow the better argument. I'm just trying to learn. I'm trying to be better. And I can't blame the women that I was with, because I never told them that that's who I was in the first place. They had to figure it out on their own. And so I have to take accountability over that. And that's why with you, showing up for that, I had to show up for that first date with 36 questions. I want to really dive in. And with the women that I met, I would say, hey, here's who I am. If this is not the kind of guy you want, I totally get it. No problem. We can split right now while there's no feelings involved. Cool. But with you, the fact that I would ask you these vulnerable questions and you just answer them, you would just go right down there with me, down that road. I love that. And that's how I found, I said, okay, I need this. But I still believe, as crazy as I am about you, that had I not taken the time to work on myself, there's no way that I would have been able to keep you. There's just no way. Mm-hmm. There was too much work I had to do. And it doesn't mean that I'm perfect now, because I'm still as flawed as the next man. But the difference is that I know that I'm flawed, and I'm constantly trying to work on it. And I'm open about my flaws and insecurities. And I don't have that problem. How did you get to a point where you could be so open about insecurities and flaws?
I think it just hit rock bottom is where it started, where I'm just like, I'm tired. I can't play any more games. I don't have any more tricks, in my bag. I was tired of me. I had to forgive myself for allowing and creating a space where there was really mental and emotional abuse. And once I finally forgave myself, I was able to like myself, and when I think about it, maybe I didn't like myself either, like was said to me so many years ago. And I started to like myself. I didn't hate looking in the mirror. Yeah, I put some weight back on from losing all that weight, but I didn't look at myself and hate what I saw. I was accepting of who I am. Doesn't mean that I don't have things that I want to get better at, but before I literally was focusing on all the things that I didn't like about myself.
Yeah.
And I think once I accepted myself, that helps in a relationship. Again, I think I mentioned this earlier.
Absolutely.
When you have all these insecurities and you lead with that, then how can you really have a healthy? There are some people who are like, oh, I'm going to help you through that. And they do help you through that. But it's better to, I think, at least try to work on it yourself, right? And so no one's going to be able to change you for you. You're going to have to do some of that work.
Right.
And I think me doing some of that work helped. And then meeting somebody who understood that work and understood that in themselves, that they also had things that they were working on. Because again, in the last relationship, there were certain things that were so traumatizing that it led to some blockage. I was once told that I was asked the question, what do I bring? Why should they buy my car? There's all these cars, Lamborghinis, Corvettes, Jaguars. Why should my car be bought at the dealership? And it was crazy to be presented and asked in that kind of way, which reminds me today of all that Samuel Jackson stuff. Or not Samuel Jackson. What's his name? Kevin Samuel.
Wow. Okay. All right.
It reminds me of all that.
Sam Jackson, we apologize.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
But it reminds me of all of that, high value this. And the things that I was saying, he didn't find value in it. And I wasn't saying superficial stuff. I'm not sitting up there like, I can throw down in the kitchen. No, that would never be something that I would lead with, even if I could throw down, but it wasn't enough. And it didn't matter because he didn't want me. But just me going through that process and like saying, these are the things I think are great about me. And that person's still looking at me like,
yeah,
not enough. Right? That was damaging me, but that was enough. What I was saying, it was enough, and it was enough for you.
Yeah.
And you accepted it, and it helped me relax and I knew how to love, but I didn't know how to be loved.
Right.
And you love me.
Mm-hmm.
You helped me learn how to be loved, like what it's supposed to feel like, look like, everything.
Yeah.
And so it was just, I think timing matters,
Absolutely.
And the timing was good on everything.
But one of the things that I love about you, and of course there's, millions of things, but, I can be vulnerable. I can tell you, hey, I'm a little self-conscious about this, or here's something that I'm frustrated with about myself. And I don't have the fear of you weaponizing it, because that's something that people do with insecurity, especially in relationships, is they take it and then they weaponize it and use it against you later. Whereas when I tell you I'm not feeling right, my energy is off, and here's why, you help me with the problem. You help me through the problem. And one of the reasons why that's so important is that means I can be honest. That means if I tell you I'm good, I'm actually good. I don't have to hide things from you. And so when I tell you that I'm good, that it's a great feeling being able to say that and actually mean it. That's absolutely critical for me. And I know for, a lot of men that I know, they have a fear that, and whether it's real or not, it may not even be a real fear, but whether it's real or not, a lot of men have a fear of that vulnerability with a woman, and them somehow weaponizing that and using it against them down the road. But for me, being vulnerable is the only way to find love. And so if I'm not going to do it, then I need to just give up on love. And so I know that by doing this, I'm setting myself up for embarrassment, that whatever woman I'm with, she may be able to take that and use it against me and embarrass me. But what else can I do? Because I can't find it any other way. I've tried it the other way, where I tried to be this great guy and not let people know what my quirks were and my problems were. And then when they figure it out, they have a good reason to hold it against me. And so it's that was one of the things that I really had to dedicate myself to, was I'm going to be vulnerable as much as I can be, as much as you'll let me be. And if I can be truly vulnerable, then I feel like we can find love. And that's what we've done. And not only have you accepted my vulnerabilities, but you've shared your own, and we can use them as a group project where we're both trying to help each other and not trying to figure out how we can, use it one day against the other. I mean, that's not a relationship.
Right. And I feel for me, because of how I feel about men, and I'm not huge on societal roles about how men or women should be, I wouldn't even date someone who isn't vulnerable. Like, I'm not into like, you're going to show up and be tough, this tough guy, and be able to do all this stuff and serve and protect and whatever all those things are, right? This is something I think both people should do in a relationship.
Yes.
So I was looking for someone who's going to be vulnerable. I was looking for someone because how can you be strong and grow, or you're going to break if you always have to be tough, right?
Yes.
Like, I know as a woman, and specifically as a Black woman, about always having to feel like you have to show up real tough and all this kind of stuff, like it's a fight, even though it's not true, right? That's what we've been kind of taught, and that's what we've been shown, and it's all that's been weaponized against us. Like,
yes.
if I'm strong
yes.
and I'm tough, then I'm trying to be a man or act like a man. What? Like, and if you are soft or you show any kind of emotion, then you're being like a woman, you're weak. And I don't believe in all that stuff.
Yes.
So that helped me too, to be able to be with someone like you, because if I had all of those, if I allowed all of that, ideals about how we're supposed to show up because of our gender, I'd probably still be out there, to be honest with you. So I just appreciate that you are the way you are, and that you are vulnerable, and that you understand that being a man can be looked at many different ways, and you understand that me being a woman can look different ways. You don't hold against me that I am kind of a strong, woman.
No, I love that about you. I don't want a woman that every time I leave, I got to worry if she's just going to fall apart. I don't want that.
Yeah.
I don't want that.
Yeah. So it's been just refreshing to me in this relationship. I'm so happy that we found each other, and I'm looking forward to seeing like how far we take it, and what is it going to be like. And even though we haven't even been together for quite 3 years yet,
right? We
just talked last night about how it feels like 10.
Yes.
What is your 10 going to be like if we're this strong and we're having these kind of conversations? I'm excited about what your 10 will be like.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
I love that you call me love. Like, that's the sweetest thing ever. And I just appreciate that so much. You just don't know how nice it is to be loved.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So we're going to wrap up this conversation. We've got a few questions that we want to answer before we let go of this podcast.
One question that we specifically want to answer, and we may have answered this along the way, but we want to make sure that we did, is what is the difference between the love we had in past relationships and the love we have now? And for me, the difference is I'm with somebody who wants to be in a relationship. They want to show up in many different ways for me. They're vulnerable. They allow me to be vulnerable. So that's a big deal. And it's not someone that I have to change or think that I need to change. They showed up in a way that is, well, Freddy, you showed up in a way that there's nothing lacking, I love so much like who you are, and it's not to say anything horrible about different people that I've been with in the past, but I think the way you showed up, and you specifically said, I am courting you. I am pursuing you.
Yes.
I want a relationship.
Yes.
I want to get married again. This is what I want. And everything you say and do lined up. And that's a huge difference than in the past.
Yeah. For me, it was really, I loved the other person, but I didn't really, I don't know if it was that I didn't love myself, but I didn't try to, I wasn't concrete about who I was, and I wasn't rigid about the fact that I'm going to evolve and I'm going to change. And if you're going to be with me, it's going to be a bit of a ride because of the fact that I'm still learning. At 52, I'm still learning it, and I feel like I have so much to learn. And that's why what I love about you is not only do you allow me to change, but we have discussions about it. and maybe certain things might change you as well, or something I might think of that I may want to change. You may be able to talk me out of it. You may be able to say, wow, that's a dumb idea, and here's why. But it's the fact that you're not against my evolution. But one of the major things that I've realized, having been married twice, is that the more I take care of myself, the more that I'm happy within myself, the more loving I can be to someone else. But I can't love someone at the expense of myself. And I don't blame anybody for that. I don't blame any previous relationship for that, because that's what I went headfirst into. So that's no one else's fault except my own. But this time I wanted to be me. I wanted to enjoy being me, and I wanted to enjoy loving another person. And I really enjoy loving you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone out there for listening. And if you have questions, comments, please feel free. Don't forget to subscribe to our channels. And next week we will be focusing on the growth in love, growth and narratives. And we hope that you tune in.
Thank you. Take care.